Welcome to Today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business, presented by FL Montreal. My name is Dan Delmar, and Ernie Furt is with me today, standing in for Michael Newton, well, sitting actually. Hello, Ernie.
Hi, how you doing today?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Well.
You chose a really great show to fill in for Mike because we have really one of the most successful entrepreneurs you can find in Quebec right now, Dax Dasilva, on the program today.
Yeah, I hope he'll be interesting.
He might be. I think he might be. He started out with his own Mac laptop coding a point-of-sale system called Lightspeed, bootstrapping a company that went well beyond $1 billion valuation now, and he stepped back from his CEO role now as executive chairman. So looking at the bigger picture, and he's going to talk to us about his journey and his transition into a whole new different level of entrepreneurship, someone who's really won, Ernie. And I wonder if that's my first question is, you know, as you guys advise entrepreneurs, what is the ultimate goal? You know, is the ultimate goal to go public? Is the ultimate goal to sort of step back and into a more chairman role? What to you is have you seen as sort of the successful culmination of an entrepreneurial career?
It all depends on what you want as the entrepreneur. At the end of the day, there's some people who are so driven that they want to make sure that their company goes public. Others are not as driven, and they want to have a successful company. They want to provide for their family, but they don't need the public company atmosphere. They want to make sure that their company provides things environmentally conscious. They want to, it depends on the goals of the individual entrepreneur, and every entrepreneur is different, as we've seen on this show for many years.
And Dax Dasilva of Lightspeed, certainly one that has really gone so far beyond what most entrepreneurs would have expected of him or of anyone, really. I mean, to bootstrap a company worth billions is really quite extraordinary. So we'll talk to him in a few minutes. But as usual, some news and notes, Ernie, and this from Inc.com. In love with business. So these are lessons from co-founder couples. And you guys have so many family businesses under your wing. What are your thoughts on sort of basic advice to couple partners?
Couple partners are very interesting. They're just like regular partners in a business at the end of the day, except they go home with each other at night. So, they have the same kind of chance of success, same kind of chance of failure, maybe a little bit more on the failure side, because sometimes you just can't leave the business at the office, and the business just, permeates your personal life as well. So you need some checks and balances between the office and home. And you got to have a synergy between the couples. And if there's no synergy, it's not going to work.
What about taking work home? Different perspectives on this. We've had entrepreneurs that say there's a hard rule, we don't take the work out home, and others that say, no, we kind of do, and we talk about it at the breakfast table or at the dinner table. What are your thoughts?
Once again, it depends on the relationship, because everything starts with the relationship. It depends, how you function together and what kind of downtime each of the individuals need. Because if you need that downtime and your spouse doesn't need the downtime, and you're sitting there yakking in your spouse's ear about the business, your spouse doesn't want to necessarily hear that at 10 o'clock at night, then wants to just relax and watch some TV. But everybody's different. That's why we have so many different businesses and so many different thoughts, and that's what makes the world great.
This story is also kind of interesting from Fast Company, the 7 expressions that managers should avoid using. One of them is, I'm sorry you feel that way. Another is, it's company policy. I know we promised this to you, but what are some of those phrases that you would avoid?
Yeah, sorry, I changed my mind is another one. I need you in this role. I want you to stay in your current job. And, I'm going to be a helicopter boss and copy me on everything that you do. That just kind of shows that you don't trust the employee to a certain extent. Saying I didn't say it, I didn't say that. You got to elaborate on things and make sure that, your employee understands what's going on. And, you make a promise sometimes, but you can't always keep it. Why can't you keep it? You apologize for not being able to keep it, but, work with the employee to say when you can actually make that promise again.
This from Human Resources Director Magazine, 8 trending employee benefits and perks in 2022. Certainly taking care of your workforce is one major trend that's inescapable, and employers should be considering new ways to offer benefits and perks, frankly, to your employees.
You got to differentiate yourself. If everybody offers your standard pension plans to a certain extent, they offer group health insurance. Some places offer cars. How many places offer pet insurance or days off with your pet? These are things that people are looking for. Increased flexibility. We've had that for the past couple of years, but people are still looking for that flexibility, even if we're coming out of the pandemic. They want to make sure that, okay, now everybody has to come to the office. Too bad for you. Well, I really would like to stay home a day or two a week. So it's something that you have to have a discussion with your employee and make them feel at home. You have remote technology reimbursements also, which we've been doing over the course of time. We've set people up at their houses in the same manner they're set up here. It's plug and play. So it's a fantastic thing. But you got to support your employees, because your employees are there to help you run your business and help you make money at the end of the day.
This piece from entrepreneur.com on diversity. So how to build a diverse workforce in a meaningful way. Some tips they offer is opening doors requires opening minds. So just communicate to your workforce that you are open-minded. Communicate this across all generations. Talk about people's background and upbringing sometimes in the workplace. What do you make of ways to encourage a more diverse workforce, certainly as we look for more and more competitive employees?
At the end of the day, it starts from the top, and it can't be token. We'll have a few people of this ethnicity. We'll have a few people of this culture. We'll have a few people of this age, and we'll have a bunch of younger people. So everybody has to work together. You have to bring all these people together in one environment that creates the culture for the environment that you're in the workplace. You can't ignore all those things, and you have to focus, with leadership by example. So it has to come from the top. Different types of personalities. You have people who are very quiet. You have people who are very gregarious. And you can't build a place with a whole bunch of quiet people, nor a whole bunch of gregarious people.
Let's talk some marketing now from entrepreneur.com. 10 small business marketing strategies that actually work. Cold calling, cold emailing is actually one that they recommend. Influencers, connecting with local businesses. What's on your radar? And then I'll share some of my tips too.
Know your audience. So who are you talking to? Offer incentives and discounts for the products and services that you sell. Build a good and cohesive email list. Search engine optimization is amazing. We did that here a few years back, so we get up on Google hit list near the top. So people call us first, and that's phenomenal. If you can do that and have those keyword searches, and that produces you at the end of the day, you can do a lot for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Having your basic web infrastructure is important. And once you do that, once you have a good business card, website at least, maybe then you add a blog, maybe you write on a regular basis. That also helps SEO, search engine optimization. All that means is the more that you write about the topics of interest to you and your community, the more the search engines will pick it up. So that's a good thing. And the other tip that this piece mentions is the newsletter. So incredibly important to collect email addresses whenever possible, stay in touch with your community. And if you do two things, if you can only do 2 marketing things a year, website and newsletter, maybe a little social media on the side if you can, at least have the profiles up so people can find your basic info. But those would be the 2 or 3 basics, I think. Just make sure that people can reach you and that you can reach them.
Yeah, but don't leave it get old. Always look at it, always update it. It's essential, because I've seen old websites that haven't been changed in years, and people just forgot about them. They're kind of like ghost websites. So what we have to do is make sure that these things are updated constantly, and there's good and new information there.
Indeed, our own website for TNKR has been offline for a couple of months because it's being updated, and I don't want to have old stuff on it. I don't want to show people new blogs. So if you have one of those blogs where you haven't sort of written a post since 2017, or maybe since 2019, or even in the last year or so, take it offline. Just take the blog offline at that point and come back to it when you have time to commit to sharing your knowledge a little bit. But it's essential that you keep things fresh whenever possible. Okay, and lastly, Ernie from entrepreneur.com, 4 smart ways maps can help your business keep its social promises. So mapping technology and location intelligence to help you measure the success of your team. What do you think? Is this practical or a little too creepy?
It can be creepy, it can be practical. But people want to know if you're socially responsible and you say you're going to plant trees somewhere and you actually show them on your website. I think that's interesting. Because people like to see what you say and make sure that you're not just paying lip service to something, that you're actually doing it.
So using tech to at least communicate some metrics, but I'm not sure you want to follow your employees around, though. Geolocation.
It's not following the employees. It's following what you're supposed to be doing. You know, if you want as an entrepreneur, to aid society. So show where you're aiding society, disaster relief programs. If that's what you're into, show where you're going, show what you're doing so people can actually see it. And at the end of the day, you're going to work smarter and not harder, which is a common expression that we hear forever. And do what you have to do. Look at your locations, serve those markets that are underserved, and let people see what you're doing.
Yeah, the other tip for doing good here, which I like, and this speaks to effective altruism and just doing what you're good at. And they suggest just focus on your strengths and deliver the services to people who need them. At the end of the day, it's a really good way to just give back, is to just give away what you're best at.
Exactly.
Ernie, coming up next, we're going to talk with Dax Dasilva, the founder of Lightspeed. He is really an incredible entrepreneur here in Montreal, someone who built a company from the ground up to become a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse. Dax Dasilva is with us. Dax, welcome back to CJAD.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, and let's just begin at the very most basic level for those that don't know Lightspeed, perhaps for those that haven't been to a cool cafe in Montreal in the last decade. What is Lightspeed point of sale?
Yeah. So what Lightspeed does, so we're a commerce platform. We supply, it's an all-in-one commerce platform. So it's all the tools, technology, elements in the cloud that you would need for your retail business or your hospitality business, like a restaurant or a bar or a nightclub. So we do retail and restaurant primarily. There's 160,000 plus retailers and restaurants using the software all over the world in about 100 different countries. It's powering something like more than 60 billion in transactions every year. So another part of the business is golf, which is a bit of a combo of retail and hospitality. But yeah, that's really our segment, and we work with the more complex retailers that are still not the big chains, but the local businesses that you will see in our neighborhoods, the local chains. A bike store or a chain of 3 bike stores that has, like a few 100,000 parts in their database of inventory and they have a repair shop. That's an ideal Lightspeed customer, or a clothing store or a table service restaurant. So we serve those customers, and we feel like those are the customers that really bring our neighborhoods and our communities to life, because they're the independent businesses and they need technology to keep competitive. So that's what the competitive edge we're giving them with Lightspeed.
Ernie, I know you know what Lightspeed is. How much simpler has your jobs as accountants been lately because of Lightspeed?
They're a one-stop shop. It's a very interesting profile. But I want to ask Dax a question pertaining to, why should a retailer go with you? What are the advantages that they gain?
Yeah. So I think that getting onto a cloud-based system that can manage all the elements of a business is it's almost a necessity. It used to be a nice to have in terms of what it can do for your business, but it's now with us having to be able to be great in store, but also great online, great on social media in terms of a brand, and great at managing all the inventory across all these channels. That's what's called omni-channel. And in order to be a successful business, you have to be great on all those channels. And I think that was put into real perspective during the pandemic, where businesses that really were, brick and mortar had to very quickly become also great at e-commerce. And so managing all of that from one system, and in the case of a restaurant, it's, you have to be great in your restaurant, but also you have to be great at delivery or great at curbside pickup or all of these other channels. Managing multiple systems that don't talk to each other to accomplish that is kind of bad news for a business. You're never gonna get ahead of the complexity, and that's what Lightspeed solves. We know that business is getting more complicated. It's getting more complicated for that small business owner. There's a lot more elements, and so what we try to do from the very beginning, since we started 17 years ago, actually, it's our anniversary. We started 2005. That's been the mission from the beginning, is simplifying the complex and empowering that business owner, even though they're expected to be more and more tech savvy and more on top of all these new trends. And it's just, retail has gotten a lot more complex, and running a restaurant's gotten a lot more complex. And that's where we come in.
Curious, us being an accounting firm, is there anything that you could do for us as an accounting firm?
Well, I think that, as an accounting firm, we, your clients that are running these independent businesses, when they've got an online business, they've got in store, they've got maybe multiple locations. You can rest assured that their business is being is being run with one system that's using Lightspeed. I think it's much cleaner for the accountant to receive all of that than if they were using multiple systems that weren't connected. If there were different locations, we're using different systems. Because before the cloud, there was on-premise systems. You had a server somewhere in your store or in your restaurant, and that didn't talk to anything. And it certainly didn't talk to your online store. They certainly didn't talk to each other. So transferring inventory, moving things around, that was all done very manually. And so it's the accountant that has to figure it all out at the end of the day. And so it's a lot of time saved for everybody that could be put into, planning how to better serve customers, planning a better assortment of inventory, planning for the next location. So, we want to take their time, make better use of their time, not these details that can be automated with technology.
Dax Dasilva, let's go back to the origin story now of Lightspeed. And this is a bootstrap company. It's not every day we get to talk to someone with a net worth that is as impressive as yours who bootstrapped their company. How did this start? How did this all start? I mean, are we talking about you just sort of behind a computer starting to code? Where did the idea come from? And how did you get your first funding?
Yeah, so I mean, it started when my father used to bring home a Mac. My father was a graphic designer, and brought home a Mac when I was, a kid. I just got obsessed with the early Mac. It was this combination of art and the design and technology that was just, there's a lot of artists and designers in our family, and so I started to learn how to figure this computer out and program. And I at the age of 13, I was apprenticing with an Apple developer, building software on the Mac. So all through my teens and 20s, I was this very nerdy programmer and software designer. But I really did approach it as from the viewpoint of building beautiful user interfaces and making things that were complex simple. So very much what Lightspeed did, and I did that for a lot of the Apple dealerships that were in Vancouver and then Montreal. And before there was Apple stores, there was like specialized dealerships. And so that's where my retail exposure comes from. That's where understanding how these complex businesses really work. And then realize that there's a need for business software like this, that as Apple started to really have their comeback, more people wanted to use the iMac in their store, and as iPhone and iPad got popular, people wanted to run their stores on iPads, and so that's how Lightspeed got super popular, because it wasn't just using Apple hardware in the store. It's what Apple represented, which was empowerment. It was before you had these on-premise systems that it didn't really give you any information about your business. You kind of fought with it to run your transactions, but it wasn't telling you about how you could build a better business, and it wasn't bringing together all these different opportunities and sales channels within your business. So we started in 2005. The first couple of years of the company were really magical. I mean, we didn't take any investment for the first 7 years. First 2 years, I coded till 4 a.m. every day, fueled by French vanilla coffees from Tim Hortons, which is just this deadly combo of sugar and caffeine. So you can credit Tim Hortons, and so I would just code till 4 a.m. and it was in the first office is in the Montreal Gay Village. I had an apartment those classic triplexes on the third floor, and I rented the apartment right below me. That was the Lightspeed office, or Exilva as it was called. And I would just go down the back stairs to the office. When I woke up, because I was coding till 4, I'd wake up at like 10 or 11, and then meet the folks that were selling and supporting and administrating our little company, and then it just grew from there. We grew to about, with no external investment, we grew to about 50 people and about 10 million in revenue. And that's really when the next part of the journey began.
And Dax, you are in the news for a couple of reasons lately, and we'll get to some of your philanthropy as well, where this company is going in the future. But where you are going in the future first, you moved recently from CEO to executive chair. Usually this is a celebratory moment, right? I mean, is this is this a victory for you to kind of take a step back and be less involved in operations?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing moment for both me and JP, our CEO. You have the natural progressions in the company. JP has been our president, and he's been in this role for 10 years. We've been leading the company as CEO for 17 years, and he's taken over more and more of the elements of the day-to-day operations. First, he had sales and marketing, and then support, and then eventually product. And now, as CEO, he's taken on the last pieces, HR and finance, and so it's been something that's been in the planning, and has obviously gone really smoothly because we work so well together. We've been such great business partners. He came into the company but when we got our first investment, actually, when we've got that first initial investment from Silicon Valley is when JP joined, and what we've really together transformed the future of it, transformed the company, created a ton of value, and so it's an amazing moment to actually just redefine our roles. But actually, those are the jobs that we're kind of doing. I'm leading now from the board level. He's leading now the day-to-day operations of the company, and I sync up with him all the time. And as the executive chair, it's a little bit different from chair because you're still part of management. You're still part of the company, so it's you're still on the internal systems, and I think it's a really great title for a founder, because for a founder, you still are connected to something where you really feel like you're still the soul of it. And I can help JP, and I can help the management team through all the different opportunities and challenges that we have building this global, this global powerhouse. So it's a great moment of evolution.
So you're still on the Slack channel then?
Yes, I am still on the Slack channel. Yeah, I just had a Zoom with JP, so to do our sync up. So it's great, and we're bringing on a lot of new board members. We brought in 2 fantastic women to join our board recently. So I was in the UK and onboarded with Patrick Pichette, our former chair. 2 new members. So we're building out a really amazing board that's represents our highest aspirations for diversity and inclusion, and I also I'm so involved with the environment through Age of Union, which we'll talk about. That I want also some of those ESG sustainability. I'm leading those efforts for Lightspeed, and some of our long-term strategy. That's really where I get involved.
Let's talk about Age of Union right now, and that donation, $14.5 million to the BC Parks Foundation. Tell me about what kind of work you do and why these sorts of environmental donations are core to your giving back.
Yeah, so Age of Union started with a book I wrote called Age of Union in 2019. It's a toolkit for igniting the changemaker. I think if we all want to see a different planet where humans are operating much more in harmony with nature, and we certainly have a long ways to go, then I think we all have to think as change makers. And so the projects that Age of Union, which is now a foundation, we call it actually the Age of Union Alliance because it's an alliance of different projects around the world. We started that this last October with, and I pledged $40 million for the projects we were going to be investing in. Started with 5 projects. The first 5 were, here at the St. Lawrence River, restoring the floodplains and the riverbanks and buying back some of the farmland and enhancing our own river that I see from my house and is 5 minutes from the Lightspeed office. And we've done a little short film on that you can watch on YouTube called "We Are the St. Lawrence River." But we've also invested in other places like the Peruvian Amazon, Indonesia, the Congo, and in Haiti. And then we just announced $4.5 million for Sea Shepherd to have a vessel that's going to fight illegal fishing, off the coast of France and soon Africa. There's a ship now called the Age of Union, which if you go on our social media, you'll see this amazing ship. We were just there in France filming another documentary on the work that they're doing, because a lot of dolphin are being caught in the fishing nets, and I don't think a lot of people are aware. And I think we can change that. And then, of course, that brings us to BC Parks Foundation. I mean, I'm a true blue Montrealer in terms of, I've been here for the last 20 years and absolutely love the city, and it's brought so much to me. I started Lightspeed here, but my love of nature comes a lot from where I was born in BC, that's natural beauty that we have as bountiful across our country. And wanted to make sure there's so many threatened places in BC. Everything's growing so quickly that there's places slated for development that are so critical to species. So worked with BC Parks Foundation to come up with this $14.5 million gift. It's the biggest gift in BC history for conservation. And the first 2 properties that we're securing, one is an eagle habitat that was slated for development. And literally 35 to 50,000 eagles fly through this area every year on their migration. And there's 1,000 resident eagles. And it's surrounded by subdivisions and was going to become another one. And we would just be contributing to the end of eagles if we let that happen. And then there's another watershed just right outside Vancouver. It's the largest intact watershed with everything from elk to wolves to grizzlies and it's a 15-minute float plane ride from Vancouver. It's also slated for development. And so we need to save these places, and we need to get all other tech leaders and business leaders and everyday Canadians rallying for the protection. We want to do 30% of the goal is 30 by 30. 30% of the world, of wilderness and marine areas have to be protected by 2030, or we're going to have a major continued losses in biodiversity. So that's where we're focused, and we're excited that we're working with changemakers and all these different projects and telling their stories through little films, but also providing the funding for them to turn the page.
I think it's phenomenal. I want to step back to when your first injection of capital into the company and how that changed the company and changed the vision of the company.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I now see that when we invest in some of these conservation organizations, Jungle Keepers, for example, in the Peruvian Amazon, it's a Canadian, a New Yorker, and 2 Peruvians, and I feel like they look like Lightspeed when Lightspeed got its first investment. They have all the bones there. They have the team. They have the the beginnings of all the different pieces of their project, a ranger program, a land acquisition program. They've got all the different elements, and they just need fuel, to really secure all the land along the river and have a ranger program to protect it and so on. That's where Lightspeed was in 2012. We had built up this company with a team of 50 people. We had 400 resellers selling the software all around the world in all these different countries, and got to 10 million in revenue. And we started to get discovered. We didn't go after investment. We were discovered by Excel partners that were the backers of Facebook, of Dropbox, and other superstars in the tech world. And they saw us at a trade show, and they saw the future of retail. We were just retail at that moment, and they put $30 million into the company after about 2 weeks of discussions. So it was a very unique story. After 7 years of bootstrapping, it was an amazing coming together of us and this investor, and that just brought other investors. After that, we had a lot of Canadian support. Inovia, which has been an amazing investor, and then a lot of other Canadian investors like the Caisse de Dépôt. That was the next 7 years. The next 7 years was building this international. we moved all our software into the cloud. We moved into hospitality. We went really global, and that brought us into getting real scale. We went from being a startup to a scale up, and we professionalized the company, and that's where we really became, much more than the original vision, which was, a software on the Mac. And at the beginning, all I was trying to do was win an Apple Design Award. I wasn't trying to build an international company. I just wanted to impress Steve Jobs and get a design award, and I never got one. But the software was pretty beautiful. And that was like really honestly my main goal. And in the end, building, getting that investment allowed us to build this international, global player that's like the go-to for if you're in these segments of retail and hospitality. It's we're the default choice, which is an amazing place to be. And then that takes us to that next step, which is the IPO.
Dax Dasilva, we're going to have your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in just a few minutes. But first, real quick before you go, I'm curious, just in about 30 seconds, your first aha moment as someone who worked in the restaurant industry, who dealt with those printers and the ink and the whole mess of the point of sale system. What was your aha moment?
The aha moment, I think, for me was, as we got our first couple of customers, and we decided, like it was 2006, we decided that we were going to invite some of the people that are already using the software to come to Montreal and learn how to sell it. And we had people, 40 different people from as far as Saudi Arabia and Ireland and all over the US and Australia come to learn how to become a reseller for Lightspeed. And that's when we were only four or five people at the company. And that's when I realized, okay, people want to sell this everywhere. And that was like, we are going to be multiplying faster than we can manage. So that was the moment where I was like, it was very early, and I thought, wow, okay, this is in demand.
And an extra inspirational edition of the show today with Dax Dasilva. He'll be right back. He'll have his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in a few moments. But first, as usual, we go to our experts. Before we get to Patrick, though, Ernie, wow, I mean, what an inspirational talk from Dax. I mean, it's really hard to find an entrepreneur who really bootstrapped something to this level. I mean, this is an impressive venture.
The man has vision, and he has vision and he has drive. Combination of vision and drive leads to success. So that's what he did over the course of time, because there's a lot of visionaries who just think of stuff, but just can't do it. So they need a partner. He didn't need that partner. He was his own partner.
Sometimes you need a bank as your partner. So before we get to Dax and his one piece of advice that's on the way in just a second, let's bring in our expert. Patrick Sullivan is the president of Le Groupe Fuller Landau. Patrick, welcome back.
Always a pleasure, guys.
So Patrick, now we're heading out of COVID. Bankers are almost back into their offices. And what can we expect from the bankers, because of all the relief programs that they granted over the course of time? What are the bankers going to do? How are they going to pull in the reins?
Okay, well, actually, Ernie, you mentioned bankers are coming back. Yes, they are. From what I'm hearing off the street is technically everyone's going to be back in the physical places come April. What does that mean? Obviously, after 2 years of struggling in the pandemic, entrepreneurs have had a real rough time. Today, they're faced with obviously their labor force, which is everybody's seeking labor. Everybody's seeking to find the right people, and they're few and far apart. Now, bankers have been extremely tolerant over the last couple of years for a number of reasons. The government subsidies and loans that were guaranteed helped push these companies into the future, which was we're getting there now, getting out of this pandemic. But now back to reality. Bankers are going to be looking closer to their files. The boys behind the scene, which we call risk management, are going to be reviewing and analyzing the various loans that have been either supported by government subsidies, granted or extended. They're going to be looking at ratios, because a lot of the companies have been in default under the conditions in terms of their engagement to the banks. So what does that mean at the end of the day? Bankers are going to be seeking answers to their questions, which they have been very lenient during the last couple of years. For an entrepreneur, what that means is you guys have to get ready. You have to be ready to face those questions and give the proper answers, obviously giving the truth, which is what is expected by the bankers. And how do you get ready for that? You better have your projections ready, your financials up to date, because there's been a lot of laxism. My controller has COVID, all the reasons in the world not to provide the timely information to your banker. But this is all going to come to an end. And it's going to come fast because everybody's expecting, we're at a record low in terms of insolvency matters over the last 2 years, a record low of almost 30 years. And professionals like I am are expecting a big inflow of work come this fall for a number of reasons. I mean, people are going to be in default. There's going to be a lot of forbearance agreements that are going to come into play. Bankers are going to be seeking a lot more external consultants to go and validate the information that they basically have not received in the last couple of years.
Basically, the borrowers should react by being organized and being ready to go and being ready to be questioned about some of the stuff that they didn't provide or weren't asked to provide over the past couple of years.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you about one last thing, which is ghost companies. What's a ghost company?
Well, basically, I've seen a lot more ghost companies come into play in the last couple of years. Ghost companies basically are companies where entrepreneurs couldn't make it anymore, decided to lock it up, go home, and just leave it hanging there. And there's quite a few of those around now for a number of reasons. The suppliers weren't pressuring anymore, or very little, because they were under their own pressure. And when there's no more cash flow, how can you operate? So at some point, if the entrepreneur cannot reinvest in his business, doesn't see any future for it, in many cases, they normally would turn to an insolvency professional and say, okay, let's foreclose the company, let's either bankrupt it and move on. Instead of that, they basically just lock it up and go home and wait for somebody else to do it for them.
Interesting.
Patrick Sullivan, president of Group Fuller Landau. Thanks so much for joining us again, Patrick.
Always a pleasure.
And as we approach the end of our show, let's turn to Dax Dasilva, founder of Lightspeed, and ask him for his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur, sir.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's focus. And the way that I got focus was writing a business plan. We had some early grants, and then we were like forced to write a business plan in order to get our grant. And I was like, oh, I'll never look at this thing again. But we had to submit a 3-year business plan, and that really made me write down on paper what we were actually going to do. Because when you're starting a business, there's so many possibilities. There's so many different things you can do, a lot of things to get excited about. But when you write it down and then you write the second piece, which is the spreadsheet part of the 3-year progression, that helps you actually really focus on what you're going to do. And what we actually wrote down in that business plan was still the mission of what we do today. And we were a little bit off on that first year projections, but we hit the second year projections on the nose, and the third year we exceeded it. So a little bit of focus and a little bit of planning at the beginning can really, I think, make the difference, and help you not waste time on a lot of distractions.
Dax Dasilva, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you again. Ernie, final thoughts on this really inspirational edition of Today's Entrepreneur?
I'm just flabbergasted just by listening to the story, and it's a wonderful thing to hear. You don't hear that very often, and today his advice is perfect. At the beginning, focus at the beginning, do it. That's what it has to be, because if you don't focus there, you're not going to start anything.
Dax, thank you so much, and especially on behalf of Montreal Accountants, thank you very much for your work as well.
Thank you for having me.
And Ernie, just a really inspirational talk today from Dax Dasilva, who has really crossed a whole other threshold as an entrepreneur and now taking a step back to look at the bigger picture. Just a really incredible story.
That was a great show. Very impressed. Love the company. Love the guy. It was just phenomenal listening to him. People can learn a heck of a lot from a man like that.
Yeah, do catch up if you can on today'sentrepreneur.org. You can re-listen to it on iHeartRadio, iTunes, or Spotify, your favorite platform. And don't forget to tune in next time as well. Ernie, thanks so much for joining us on this very special show.
I enjoyed this show extremely.
And Ernie, next week, Mike is back, and we'll be chatting with Maxime Moret, the co-founder of a very different business, Rose Buddha. It's a trendy clothing and accessory manufacturer. They're all about ethical and benevolent values, slowing down the manufacturing process to stay true to themselves. So a very interesting business on the way. We'll see you back here next week.
This has been a production of TNKR Media. Good talk.